Now it's time for some New York Mets baseball talk. Here's Gary Mack bringing you the latest news and analysis from Mets Nation and the world of baseball on another edition of Mets Musings.
And hello, welcome to another edition of Mets Musings, episode number 291. Well, the Mets dropped 2 out of 3 to the Cardinals going into the All-Star break and end up the first half, if you will, the arbitrary first half at 39-47. And that's indicative of the way the team has played. It has been a very rough season, full of tons and tons of injuries. It's been a regular MASH unit. We've got one more to report. Brandon Nimmo now has a collapsed lung, partially collapsed lung. And the last x-ray they did before the break, it was signs that it was looking better. He went on the disabled list last Saturday, complaining about how he felt following New York's series in St. Louis, went to the hospital for further evaluations. He told reporters on Saturday he didn't know exactly what caused the partially collapsed lung. And the doctor said there are certain athletes where once in a while it just happens. It's not caused by anything except it just pops up once in a while. So Brandon Nimmo is out for 10 days. And we hope he gets better quick because he was playing some good baseball for the Mets. And we really need him back. The pitching has been a big problem. The injuries to Harvey and Syndergaard did not help for the season. Lugo was out. Matz was out. Wheeler was out for a short period of time. That's the whole staff other than DeGrom, who's not been on a disabled list at least once. And even DeGrom missed a start. He was skipped one time because of some tenderness. So it has been a mess. We've been out without Duda for a short period of time. Walker's out hurt. Cabrera's been in and out of the lineup. He's been on the disabled list a couple of times. Cespedes has been on the disabled list. I mean, it goes on and on. Cespedes isn't hitting. He's struggling now. It just goes on and on. The most consistent player has been Jay Bruce. And probably Michael Conforto, though he had a little bit of a slump before going on a disabled list right before the All-Star break. But he is back, and hopefully he can put it together in the second half. Can they still make a run? Yeah, anything's possible. I'll never say never, but the way they played in the first half, the way they've ended the first half, I just don't see it coming. I don't see the wild card even as a possibility. They are so far behind and so many teams to go over. It would be a very difficult thing to do. And the most telling statistic for the whole season so far is this. The Mets are 5-21. 5-21 against first place and wild card teams. So they're not beating the teams that they really have to beat to get back in this race. They're beating bad teams, Philadelphia, Miami, Atlanta, those kind of teams, but they're not beating the cream of the crop. And those are the guys you have to beat. You have to beat the bad teams as well, don't get me wrong. But you have to beat the good teams in order to be in this race the whole season. And they're not doing that. So we move to the second half of the season, and see what happens. Now, to me, this is the dumbest idea I ever heard. Mets right-handed pitcher Noah Syndergaard on a 60-day disabled list due to a torn lat could potentially return quicker if the Mets start out by using him in the bullpen, pitching coach Dan Warthen suggested to Newsday. Another reason why Warthen should get fired. This is the dumbest idea. Don't bring him back and rush him back and put him in the freaking bullpen. Let him get to be 100% and put him in the starting rotation. And if that means next spring, then wait until next spring. I mean, this is a stupid idea. The same thing with Harvey. If they're not going to be ready, don't rush him back this year. Why take the chance of further injuries when you could just wait? Let them heal up. Let them get into baseball shape. Tell him not to put 17 pounds on again. And don't give him a program where he's lifting weights. Make him run. Make him throw lightly. Make him throw daily. And come into spring training camp in baseball shape. Not Thor shape. Not Mr. America shape. Not Mr. World shape. Baseball shape. The same thing with Harvey. The same thing with Cespedes. These guys all want to be weightlifters and bodybuilders, and it's been a big bust. That's where I think the injuries are coming from. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. But we've seen a lot of baseball, and it's ridiculous the way some of these guys, they look great, but they getting hurt, dropping like flies, and it's all across baseball. It's not just the Mets. Injuries are up across baseball. There's got to be a common denominator. There's got to be something wrong. I know the game changes, but boy, it's not necessarily changing for the better, let me tell you. And speaking of injuries, Mets closer Jeurys Familia will begin throwing during the All-Star break as he tries to recover from a blood clot in his shoulder. He underwent surgery in May and could return from the disabled list later in the season. And again, I say, if it's going to be August, if it's going to be September, why bother at this point? Shut him down too. Throw some of the young guys in there. Let's see what they're made of. Let's see what we got on the farm. It doesn't make a lot of sense to rush these guys back at this point in time. The Mets will open the second half by starting Jacob deGrom on tomorrow night on Friday, Seth Lugo on Saturday, Steven Matz on Sunday, as they play the Colorado Rockies. And we will be talking more about the Colorado Rockies in just a few minutes with my special guest. So stay tuned for that. And we might as well take a break then at this point in time and be back after these messages.
Looking for great Cardinals talk? Then check out Conversations with C70. My name's Daniel Shoftaw, and I talk with some of the great bloggers on the internet today about their teams, but it always goes back to the Cardinals. Find the latest episode on my website, www.cardinal70.com, or at baseballpodcast.net.
Did you know that Baseball PhD can be heard on baseballtalkradio.com?
Our shows rotate with other top baseball podcasts.
Now don't forget, that's baseballtalkradio.com.
With us, we'll help you get a PhD in life through baseball.
With baseballtalkradio.com, you'll hear the rest of the excellent universe of baseball podcasts.
516-619-6341. That is the comment voicemail hotline if you'd like to be a part of the show. And drop us a line, leave us a comment or a voicemail, question, anything at all. Call that number, 516-619-6341. Or go to MetsMusings.com and click on that widget in the middle of the screen, and that's a speak pipe, and you can leave a voicemail right through your computer, through your computer's microphone. Or if you prefer to do things the old-fashioned way, send us an email at metsmusings@gmail.com. The Facebook page is facebook.com/groups/MetsMusings, and the Twitter handle is at MetsMusings1.
With all the Mets news, it is the news from around the world and around the corner. Here's Gary Mack.
And I'm back, and I'm joined this evening by Kevin Henry. He is the editor of the RoxPile, and Kevin's been on before, so he's a veteran on this show. Kevin, welcome back to MetsMusings.
Always good to talk to you, my friend. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime, Kevin. And this time, the Rockies are unbelievable this year. They got off to a very quick start, faltering a little bit lately as the Dodgers have overcome them. But still, they're the second wild card team, and they look like a terrific team this year. We have not seen them yet. What can you tell us about them? Where did this surge come from?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. This is something that folks in Colorado, we've been waiting on for quite a while. Everybody said the talent is coming through the system. Just wait on it, and it's finally here. So you've got a great mix of young pitching with Kyle Freeland and German Marquez and Antonio Senzatella. You've got these young guys coming up through the system who are making an impact. And then you've got the guys who've been there forever, the Nolan Arenados, the DJ LeMahieu's, who are doing their thing. So it's a really interesting time for the Rockies because they struggled a little bit before the break, as you mentioned. They caught a lot of people off guard with this young pitching. People caught up with it right before the break. And they're also dealing with Trevor Story, who had such a great year last season before getting injured. He has been in a season-long slump. So has Carlos Gonzalez. So you're talking about a team that is finding new people to really contribute to their success, and it's mostly coming on the pitching side. And you don't hear that from Colorado that often, but this year is certainly that exception.
Yeah, and that's certainly one thing that Colorado's always been looking for is it was the pitching. They always seem to put together a hitting team. It was the pitching that always seemed to stop them, and like you say, now they have that, and amazing. I was just looking at Carlos Gonzalez's numbers, and he is really having a bad year, and yet here they are.
Yeah, it's sad to watch, to be perfectly honest with you, because Cargo has worked so hard to get out of this slump, and it just hasn't happened. He has started off slow in the past, but this year it's something that it doesn't matter if you give him a day off. It doesn't matter if you move him down the lineup. It doesn't matter if he goes on the DL. Nothing is fixing his swing right now. And, it's really tough for those of us in Colorado who've watched him for so long and appreciate everything he's done for the franchise to see it, because the Rockies right now are really faced with a dilemma. Do they keep Cargo around as probably a bat off the bench and nothing more unless he can turn things around dramatically in the second half? Or do they send him off somewhere else and not let him enjoy the fruits of this tremendous run? He's played on so many bad Colorado teams in the past. It'd be a shame if he didn't get to enjoy this playoff run that everybody's expecting. But at the same time, he has not signed for next year. He will be a free agent, and the talk obviously is there anything that Colorado could get in return for him?
Yeah, at this point, it's probably tough. There's going to be a lot of outfielders out there, and probably guys that are having bigger years than he is right now. So
exactly,
you maybe we get a low-level prospect or something, but it's going to be a tough market for him. But
it really is, and it's a shame because this contract negotiation talk has been holding over the Rockies forever, and they didn't do anything at the start of the season or early in the season, and now Cargo's lost a lot of trade value just because of this slump. So it really becomes what will the Rockies do, and that's one of the big questions leading up to the trade deadline right now.
And you mentioned Trevor Story, of course, the big story, no pun intended there, last season, and it's still a little strange not to see Tulowitzki there, even though there's been some time now, but it's still a little strange. Trevor Story struggling? Is it just the sophomore jinx, second year, whatever? That's been the big question, because pitchers have found the hole in his swing all year long. I mean, Trevor is striking out at an extraordinary rate right now, and it's really frustrating for Rockies fans because they remember
how good he was last season before he got injured. And, again, he missed half of last season with that thumb injury and still put up 27 homers and 72 RBI. So now all of a sudden you get Trevor back for a full season. Everybody's expecting him to, be a 40-40 guy this year. Unrealistic expectations, but still. And the strikeouts have been high. The batting average has never gotten up to where it needs to be. And now there's talk around Colorado at the trade deadline. Do they need to pursue a Zach Cozart or somebody like that to come in and play shortstop? I mean, it's a crazy thought, but that's what people in Colorado are wondering right now.
Wow, that is a crazy thought after the year he had last year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like you said, Tulo held down that position for so long, and everybody thought, well, Trevor's now going to be especially after last season, it's just going to be handed over to Trevor, smooth transition. That's not the case. And so you've got a lot of people going, how long until Brandon Rogers, who's the number one Rockies prospect in the minors and playing a Double-A right now, how long until he's ready to play in the majors? Do they need to trade for a Cozart or somebody to come in and play half season and then see if Rogers is ready to come up next year? There's a lot of questions swirling around shortstop right now.
Certainly seems that way. And, of course, Brendan Rodgers is the number one prospect that you have, and he's playing in Hartford, in my neck of the woods here.
Exactly. And one thing to keep watch of with Hartford is, Chad Bettis, and, you and I are doing this on Thursday night. Chad Bettis is scheduled to make his first rehab start from chemotherapy and cancer tonight in Hartford. And so, Colorado's pitching will probably get stronger as the season goes along, where they make a deal. Chad Bettis is going to come back. John Gray, don't forget, who is really the ace of their staff, has only gotten 2 wins so far this season because he's been on the DL so long with a fractured foot. So Colorado's pitching should get stronger in the second half just because of some of the reinforcements they've got coming out.
Wow. And so it doesn't look like they'll be looking to add starting pitching necessarily before the deadline.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's 2 rules of thought right now. Number one is, do you add a starting pitcher to boost up the rotation? But then there's also that thought that, if you look at the National League West standings, the Dodgers are running away with it right now. So really the Rockies are looking at that 1-game National League playoff, probably with the Diamondbacks. And so it's going to be one of those, you've already got John Gray as an ace. You have faith in John Gray as an ace. So do you really put your eggs in pitching whenever you may not make it out of that first, that very one-and-done playoff game for the wild card slot? So, yeah, a lot of talk about that as well right now. I fully expect that if Colorado makes any pitching moves at the deadline, it's going to be more in their bullpen to get things ready for Greg Holland. Greg Holland's been a great story this season, obviously coming back from Tommy John. But lately it's been very tough for Bud Black to get from his starter to Greg Holland. That's been a lot of the problem with the Rockies lately, is in the middle of the late relief before Holland comes in. So I fully expect them to bolster up the bullpen somehow through a trade. I think that's what the Rockies are going to do before the deadline.
And you mentioned Bud Black, and boy, what a job he's doing. I mean, was in San Diego for a number of years there, and didn't have the best of records, and comes to Colorado, and things take off.
He's a guy that said from day one he's not afraid to teach pitchers at altitude. And every time you ask him a Coors Field question or an altitude question, he blows it off. And he's a guy who, as a former major league pitcher, he feels like he knows what it takes to win, and he knows what it takes to even win at altitude. And so far, he's been right on. And having a guy like him come out of the dugout and talk to Kyle Freeland, talk to Antonio Senzatella, and settle them down, there really is that been there, done that thing that wasn't there with Walt Weiss. I mean, obviously, Walt played shortstop, but talking to the pitchers, it's really interesting to see the transformation of the confidence that Bud brings from the dugout.
And do you think that maybe that difference in philosophy that doesn't matter where you pitch and you can get people out, you think that has changed things in the organization perhaps?
Definitely so. And one thing to look at is Kyle Freeland. The talk has been forever that Colorado can't develop their own pitchers. Freeland's a guy who grew up in Denver. You know, he's a Denver native. He's used to the altitude. And so he's come in as a rookie and shown that, yeah, you can pitch there, you know, and Senzatello's the same way. Jeff Hoffman's the same way, you know, Marquez, you know, so there's a lot of guys who are coming in, and they're not, whenever you talk to them, they're not talking about altitude anymore. They're talking about throwing strikes and making pitches in critical situations. So Bud really has kind of changed the conversation with his pitchers, definitely.
Wow, and you know, maybe all these years that's all it needed, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's really funny because that's what a lot of us have said is, you know, is it something that this has always been there, but it took a former pitcher to really get it into people's heads. I think you might be right.
Right, unbelievable. And you had two All-Stars out there this year, Charlie Blackmon and Nolan Arenado. And, of course, Arenado, probably the best third baseman in baseball right now. I'm sure Baltimore would argue a little bit about with Manny Machado. But the Mets will put up no argument because we have nobody at third base right now.
Yeah, you know, Nolan's having his typical season. You know, he's one of those guys that the more you watch him, you know, we're very lucky in Colorado to have him. And I think people this year, you know, the winning is bringing the Colorado Rockies fans out of the woodworks. I know that's a shocker. Who would have guessed? But, you know, it's nice to be able to sit there at the park and listen to people actually cheer and notice that when Arenado makes a play, it's really something special. Mm-hmm. You know, and he's getting acknowledged for that this year from the fans. And it's really been cool to watch that unfold this season.
And Blackmon, the last couple of years, he's kind of, found his game and has been playing very, very well.
He is, you know, and Chuck's, you know, a couple of years ago, Chuck was one of the stolen base leaders in Major League Baseball. He's changed his game completely where he is getting on base, and then he's letting DJ LeMahieu and Nolan, you know, and Mark Reynolds this year, which is another great story. You know, he's letting guys like that drive him in. He's not feeling like that he has to manufacture runs with his legs this year. He's getting on, and they're playing smart baseball, and he's still scoring a ton of runs.
Just amazing when you look down the lineup and you know, compare it to last season and how much difference a year makes in this game.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. You know, the Rockies, and I will say this, I think they're going to get better in the second half, and that's not just the fan in me talking. I really do. You know, Ian Desmond has been not Ian Desmond-like in the first half. Cargo and Story, we talked about their slumps. You know, we talked about the pitching that's going to come back. So I really do think that Colorado caught a lot of people off guard with a strong start. But I think they're also going to finish strong, too. You know, this is a team that historically has, you know, faltered in the second half of the season. But that's another narrative that Bud has changed completely. You know, if you ask him about past seasons, he'll cut you off, and he'll say, this is a different team. This isn't that year. So it's really refreshing to see. And, you know, he knows that he's got reinforcements coming in, and he's also got guys that hopefully will rediscover their swing in the second half.
And, you know, they're 9.5 games out of first in the division, but they're really in a good position to a certain extent because they're 7.5 games up in the second wild card spot. So while, as you said, you think they're going to get stronger, while they may not be able to challenge for the division, there's a big gap there for anybody challenging them for the wild card as well. So maybe they catch Arizona.
That's honestly the goal right now. It's, you know, yeah, it would be great to catch the Dodgers. It would be great, but the way that the Dodgers have been playing, I'm not sure if anybody's going to catch them.
Yeah.
So right now the focus has to be, can you get ahead of Arizona and host that wild card game? You know, it's really important to be able to do that. And if you can do that and then you move on to the next round of the playoffs, hey, anything's possible.
Yeah, once you get into playoffs, anything can happen. And and look, honestly, if I mean, I'm talking as an outsider, of course, and as a Met fan, but the way people were talking about the Rockies over the winter, if they make the wild card, it's an achievement for this season.
Yeah, they can absolutely make the wild card. They can absolutely hold on to this lead. I don't see them faltering. They had such a good start to the season. I don't see, the Cubs made a move today. I think that the Cubs, the Cardinals, the Brewers are all going to be trying to get the National League Central crown. I think to catch the Rockies for the wild card is going to be a tough draw. So, while Colorado certainly can't just sit back and wait for the postseason, they don't have a lot of pressure on them like maybe some of the other teams do that are trying to catch them.
And that 7.5 game bulge is big because, as you say, the teams that are right behind them for the second wild card are pretty much the Central Division, and they're going to beat each other up trying to win that division. So
absolutely,
I don't think
and it's about the Braves. I mean, that's the next closest team out of the Central. And, I'm not sure that the Braves have the manpower to catch the Rockies. Now, granted, we have not seen the Rockies have not seen the Braves, just like they haven't seen the Mets yet this year.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll all be in the second half of the season. But still, I think if you had told Colorado fans that they'd be 7.5 games up on the second wild card spot at the All-Star break, everybody would have taken that in a heartbeat to start the season.
Without a doubt, it's certainly a great story, and it's a great story in Arizona as well.
Sure,
the turnaround they made. The whole West division is just topsy turvy this year, and except for the Dodgers, of course. But it's really a great story, and it's fun because it's Colorado. You watch it on television and. When they were winning, had the good teams a few years back and all, and the people coming out, it's a good baseball town when you're winning.
Yeah. And selfishly, I will say it's nice to not see the Broncos on the front page every day. I'm glad that we still have baseball to talk about. I would love nothing more than for the NFL season opener to come around and the Rockies are still dominating the sports page. I think that would be a great thing for Denver. Absolutely.
That would be terrific. Well, I know you took some time out from your dinner, and I really appreciate you coming on, Kevin. And just tell the folks where they can.
Always enjoy it. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens this weekend. I think a lot of teams are going to try to get off on the right foot in the second half, and certainly playing in New York isn't a tough draw. Is a tough draw for the Rockies to open up on the road, and they'll get to see their old friend Jose Reyes. So we'll see what happens.
There you go. Yeah, he's here struggling. He's been hot lately, but he got off to a terrible start. So I'm sure he's gonna love to see all the guys back.
I always enjoy the time, and I always enjoy talking Rockies. So thanks for having me on, man.
Anytime, Kevin. Thanks again for coming on.
You bet.
Okay, take care now. And
all right, bye-bye.
We'll be back right after this.
Hey, baseball fans and book fans as well. This is Frank Nappi, author of the Legend of Mickey Tussler series, inviting all of you to learn more about my protagonist, Mickey Tussler, an incredible pitching prodigy who has autism. Follow Mickey's journey as he captures the hearts of fans everywhere with his blazing fastball and indomitable spirit. Please visit Amazon or www.franknappy.com for more information.
Hi, this is the world-famous Mr. Brewtown of BrewtownSports.podomatic.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. Brewtown Sports. You can also listen to the show at Stitcher.com, TuneIn.com, and iTunes.com. And we've got the new one. It's called BrewtownRadio.weebly.com. But the one that I'm most proud of being on is BaseballPodcast.net. It is the home of great baseball talk shows. Check it out, my show and all kinds of other programs all about Major League Baseball. So check it out. That's BaseballPodcast.net, the home for great baseball talk shows.
The Phillies and Mets rivalry has never been better. Hi, my name is Rich Baxter, and I host Phillies Talk Podcast. I hope you'll join me as we talk all about the Phillies all season long. That's Phillies Talk Podcast at fightinphillies.com. And now back to Gary Mack and this great edition of Mets Musings.
516-619-6341. That is the comment voicemail hotline if you'd like to be a part of the show, and drop us a line, leave us a comment or a voicemail, question, anything at all. Call that number, 516-619-6341, or go to MetsMusings.com and click on that widget in the middle of the screen, and that's a speak pipe, and you can leave a voicemail right through your computer through your computer's microphone. Or if you prefer to do things the old-fashioned way, send us an email at MetsMusings@gmail.com. The Facebook page is facebook.com/groups/MetsMusings, and the Twitter handle is @MetsMusings1. And if you'd like to help out the show, check out our Patreon page. Check out the campaign at patreon.com/MetsMusings. And I want to thank my guest, Kevin Henry of the RoxPile. Thanks so much, Kevin, for coming on. Mets have 3 with those Colorado Rockies. And then it doesn't get much easier than that, folks. St. Louis Cardinals come into town. The Oakland A's come into town. So these are going to be telling. Let's see what kind of start they get off to in the second half. Let's hope it's a good one. Well, that does it for this edition of the podcast. This edition is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. If you would like to help in keeping this podcast going, I urge you to check out our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MetsMusings. So thanks for listening to this episode, and until next time, keep the faith, stay optimistic, and let's go Mets.